I'm going to clear up the speculations on the PPP loans with LAGUERITA. I've seen a lot of content circulating on this series, comments, other content creators making TikToks about this, so I'm going to set the record straight with receipts. This video is going to piss off a lot of you. I encourage you to watch the 6-part series that will give you context to this grand finale. We all know what the PPP loans were. Federal loans to help small businesses during the pandemic that were impacted by COVID. Exhibit 1 for your review, I pulled the application form for these loans. You needed to be a sole proprietor, partnership, C Corp, LLC, independent contractor, eligible self-employed individual, 501c, 501c19, tribal business, or a small business. I want you guys to pay attention to bullet 7, which specifies, is the United States the principal place of residence for all employees of the applicant included in the applicant's payroll calculation above? Candace would likely be classified as a self-employed individual, independent contractor. We knew that she pulled 2 loans in the amount of $5,500, both of which were forgiven, so essentially this was free money, and she filed these under her name, not a business. So it's safe to assume that she filed these as a self-employed individual. The primary place of residence for the employees being covered by these PPP loans would need to be the United States. Candace has registered an LLC by the name of LAGUERITA 70 LLC, where she explains what her company does. She states, I'm a content creator on social media platforms, including YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I create videos about my life. Based on her LLC registration, I'm going to say it's safe to assume that the business she pulled the loan for is her content creating. I want you to pay attention to Article 3 that says the company shall maintain an agent in the state of Utah for service of process who is individual residing in said state. She listed herself as the agent of the company that is residing in Utah. We know that Candace does not reside in the state of Utah. She has been documenting her life in Mexico since early 2020, and she has also shared that she has obtained immigration status of a permanent resident in Mexico. So right off the bat, her LLC is on a compliance. The LLC was filed in 2020 when Candace was already living in Mexico. So I can assert that she made a false statement when obtaining that LLC. Back to the PPP loan. The federal government, after a lawsuit, was forced to make this information public. Candace was issued 2 separate loans, both in the amount of $5,500, both of which were forgiven. Pay attention to the dates, May 2021, April 2021. Remember that the purpose of these loans was for small businesses that were impacted by COVID. Not entirely sure how a content creator would be severely impacted by COVID to the point where they need to pull out of loan. In July of 2021, just 2 months after they pulled those loans, is when they started the construction of their home. Now, call me crazy, but the math is not mathing if you are a small business owner claiming that you are being severely financially impacted by COVID to the point where you need to pull a government loan to cover your payroll, but at the same time, you are starting the build of a brand new home. At the bottom of all of her house building videos, she included her Venmo and Cash App asking for donations, or indirectly asking for donations. Remember that the deportation story that was sold was that this family was a victim of the immigration system, and they were and her husband was deported for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. When it came out a few years later that he was actually a 2-time violent offender that was deported twice for violent acts against her and other things. So to summarize my closing statements, I've seen a lot of comments that she was entitled to these loans for being an American citizen. I just want to remind you guys that the federal government prosecuted many people for these loans because they obtained them fraudulently by making false statements, by obtaining them for businesses that didn't even exist. A lot of people pulled them individually, just like she did when they didn't even have a business. There's been speculation that she has some type of U.S. registered business, that she may have employees in the U.S., etc. If she had employees in the U.S., would she not list them as a registered agent on her LLC? Instead of fraudulently listing herself, knowing that she doesn't reside in the state of Utah and doesn't fulfill the qualifications for an LLC. So in summary, I can confirm that she made false statements to receive her PPP loans, and she made false statements to receive her LLC certification. We can clear the comments of these statements being defamatory, of these being allegations. This is all information available through public records, and it supports my personal opinion of the white privilege because, ironically, I was deported for committing fraud. Here we have an American citizen that has also committed fraud and is enjoying the privilege of both countries, is receiving benefits from American taxpayers to sustain her family, also affected by deportation for committing crimes of moral turpitude, now living in Mexico. There is a double morality, there's a double standard, and now all these comments of you guys clearing her for the simple fact that she's a USC just highlights the privilege that does not decline in our own backyard.